Do you know what is quietly happening inside your mind right now, while you are listening to this? Right now, in this very moment, something extraordinary is taking place. Something so close to you, so intimate, so completely present that it has been almost invisible your entire life. Your mind is doing what it always does. It is running, searching, commenting, naming things, categorizing, planning, worrying about tomorrow, replaying something from yesterday. And underneath all of that noise, underneath all of that movement and reaching and grasping, there is something else, something very quiet, something that has always been there, something that was there before the first thought appeared this morning and will still be there after the last thought fades tonight. And that something is the real you. Not the you that has a name and a history and a list of things to accomplish, but the you that is simply here, simply aware, simply present in this moment, in this darkness, in this very comfortable stillness. Welcome to the channel Thoughts of Alan Watts, and welcome to this particular night, this particular moment of rest, of letting go, of allowing the day to finally dissolve behind you like a wave retreating back into the sea. You do not have to do anything right now. You do not have to understand anything. You do not have to fix anything, or remember anything, or be anything other than exactly what you already are. You can simply listen, simply breathe, simply allow the words to wash over you the way warm water washes over everything it touches, gently, completely, without agenda, without demand. And as you listen tonight, something may quietly begin to shift. Not dramatically, not with any effort on your part, but in the gentle, unhurried way that the sky shifts from blue to gold to rose to the deep indigo of night, without you watching it happen, without you forcing it, simply as the natural result of time passing and light changing and the world doing what the world does. Tonight we are going to explore something together, something that most people sense, but rarely stop long enough to actually look at directly. Something that the philosopher Alan Watts spent his entire life trying to point toward, not with a commanding finger, but with a gentle gesture, the way you might point out a beautiful cloud to someone walking beside you, not urgently, not loudly, but with the quiet delight of someone who simply wants you to see something wonderful. We are going to explore the hidden secret of reality. And I want to be honest with you from the very beginning about what that phrase means. It does not mean a secret in the sense of something that has been deliberately kept from you by someone powerful who does not want you to know. It is not a conspiracy. It is not a special teaching available only to those who pay the right price or belong to the right group. The hidden secret of reality is hidden in the most obvious possible way, the way that the sky is hidden by the fact that it is everywhere, the way that water is hidden from the fish precisely because the fish has never been anywhere else, the way that the sound of your own heartbeat becomes invisible to you because it has been there since before you were born, and you have simply stopped hearing it. The secret is hidden by familiarity, by habit, by the extraordinary efficiency of a mind that has learned to filter out everything that does not seem immediately useful or threatening or interesting. And in that filtering, in that constant editing of experience down to the manageable and the familiar, the most astonishing thing of all gets left on the cutting room floor. The simple, unadorned, completely extraordinary fact of being aware at all. The simple fact of this moment. The simple fact that the universe exists and that you are here to notice it, and that noticing is happening right now, and that this noticing is somehow the most real thing there is. But let us not rush toward that. Let us approach it the way you approach something shy and beautiful, slowly, gently, without grabbing for it. Let us let it come to us. Settle a little deeper into wherever you are lying or resting right now. Feel the surface beneath you, the mattress, the pillows, the blanket, whatever is holding you. Feel it as something genuinely supportive, not just as furniture, but as something that has been provided for exactly this purpose, for exactly this moment of rest, for exactly you. Let the weight of your body release downward, the way that tension releases when you stop holding it, when you simply give it permission to go. Let your legs grow heavy and still. Let your arms find their most natural resting position. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears, which is where most of us hold them all day without realizing it. And breathe. Not in any special way, not in any technique. Just breathe the way your body knows how to breathe when you let it, which is slowly and deeply and without effort. The breath going all the way down into the belly, the chest rising and falling with a kind of natural dignity, a kind of unhurried certainty that the next breath will come without being forced. Good. Just like that. Now I want to tell you about a strange and wonderful thing that Alan Watts noticed early in his life and never stopped being amazed by. He noticed that the universe is not something separate from the life that lives inside it. He noticed that the fish does not live in the water the way furniture lives in a room, with the furniture being one thing and the room being another, clearly separate. The furniture capable in principle of being moved to a different room without ceasing to be what it is. No, the fish lives in the water the way a wave lives in the ocean. The fish and the water are not two things. They are one thing doing two things at once. The water is not the environment that the fish happens to be in. The water is what the fish is made of, what the fish comes from, what the fish is expressed through, what the fish will return to. And you, listening to this right now, are related to the universe in exactly the same way. You are not a person who lives inside the universe. You are the universe, doing what it does in the form of a person. You are the universe turned back on itself, become aware of itself, delighted and confused and tired and searching and wondering about itself. Every thought you have had today was the universe thinking. Every feeling you felt was the universe feeling. Every moment of joy and every moment of difficulty and every ordinary moment in between, all of it was the universe experiencing itself through the instrument of you. This may sound strange. It may sound abstract or too large, or perhaps even a little impersonal in a way that feels uncomfortable. Because we are so accustomed to thinking of ourselves as individuals, as separate, as small and distinct and particular. And that is not wrong. You are all of those things as well. The wave is genuinely a wave. It has its own height, its own speed, its own particular shape as it moves through the water. The wave is real. But the wave is also, always and inseparably, the ocean. Here is something very few people ever notice. When you say the word I, what are you pointing to? Try it now, silently in your mind. Say, I. And then try to find what you are pointing at. You might point to your body. But which part of your body? Is the I in your head? Your chest? Is it distributed through your whole nervous system? And what about the parts of your body you cannot feel? The processes happening right now in your liver and your lungs and your bloodstream that are just as much you as the thoughts in your head. Where does the I end and the not I begin? And if you look even more closely, if you look at the thoughts themselves, who is thinking them? You would say naturally, I am thinking them. But can you think of a thought before it arrives? Can you choose what your next thought will be about? Try it. Try to choose your very next thought, to decide in advance what form it will take and what it will contain. You will find that you cannot. The thoughts arise on their own, from depths you do not have access to, from the vast underground of the mind that operates below the level of your awareness, surfacing like bubbles from the bottom of a deep, still pond, one after another, without your choosing them, without your permission. So who is doing the thinking? And if you cannot choose your thoughts, in what sense are you their thinker? In what sense are you separate from them? These are not trick questions. They are not meant to disturb you or to destabilize anything you need for living your life. They are meant to do exactly the opposite. They are meant to slowly loosen the grip of a particular belief that most people carry so automatically, so deeply, so completely below the level of examination that they have never once questioned it. The belief that you are a separate self, enclosed in a skin, fundamentally alone, fundamentally divided from the rest of existence, fundamentally in need of protecting yourself from a world that is other. That belief is the source of most human suffering, not the ordinary suffering that comes from genuine loss or genuine pain, which is simply part of being alive, and which no philosophy can or should try to eliminate, but the chronic, background, low-level suffering that comes from the constant effort of maintaining separation, the exhaustion of always being on guard, the loneliness of feeling fundamentally cut off from the rest of life, the anxiety of being a small, vulnerable, temporary self in a universe that seems vast and indifferent and dangerous. What if that belief, however convincing it feels, however completely your entire experience seems to confirm it, is simply not true? What if it is like the horizon, real enough as a feature of how things look from where you are standing, but not a real boundary in the actual structure of things? You cannot walk to the horizon. The closer you get, the further it retreats. And yet it looks completely solid, completely definite, a clear line between here and there. The horizon is a real feature of perception, but not a real feature of the world. And the separate self may be very much like that. Let me tell you about the ocean. There is something about the ocean that has always called to human beings in a way that few other things in the natural world do. We travel to it. We sit beside it for hours doing nothing in particular. We listen to it in the dark and feel something that is hard to name, something like recognition, something like remembering, something like coming home to a place you were not sure you had ever been. Artists have painted it for centuries. Poets have written about it since the first written words. Every culture that has ever lived beside it has found in it a symbol for something larger than itself. Why? Alan Watts thought it was because the ocean is the most honest metaphor for the actual structure of reality that we can see with ordinary eyes. Think about what the ocean actually is. It is one thing, a single continuous body of water, extending from shore to shore, pole to pole, connected beneath the surface even where it appears to be divided by land, circulating slowly through currents and upwellings and the great gyres that move heat around the planet. One thing. And at the same time, the surface of that one thing is covered with an infinite variety of distinct, particular, individual waves. Each wave is different from every other wave. Each wave has its own height, its own timing, its own particular way of moving. Two waves side by side are not the same wave, and yet both of them are the ocean. There is no conflict. There is no competition. There is no problem to be solved. You are a wave, not a small, inconsequential thing tossed about by forces beyond your control, but not a separate, independent, self-contained thing either. You are the ocean, waving. You are the whole of existence, having shaped itself for a little while into this particular form, with these particular thoughts, in this particular moment, listening to these particular words in the particular darkness of this particular night. And when this wave subsides, as all waves do, as everything that has arisen must eventually return, it will not be a loss. It will be the ocean reclaiming itself. The energy that was this wave continuing in other forms, in other waves, in the vast circulation of the sea that never stops and never runs out and is never lessened by the ending of any individual wave, no matter how large or beautiful it may have been. This is a thought worth resting in for a moment, not a thought to analyze or debate or try to verify, just a thought to hold the way you hold a warm stone, feeling its weight, its warmth, its simple, solid presence, without needing to understand the geology of how it came to be the particular stone that it is. The ego. Let us talk about the ego, because understanding it is perhaps the most important thing that Alan Watts spent his life trying to communicate. And let us be very clear from the beginning about what we mean by ego, because the word gets used in many ways, and some of them are quite different from what we mean here. We do not mean ego in the sense of arrogance or vanity or excessive self-importance, though those things are certainly related. We mean something more fundamental. We mean the story of self, the ongoing, constantly updated, never completed narrative that the mind constructs and maintains about who you are, what has happened to you, what you need, what you fear, what you want, where you are going. The character in the story of your life, as distinguished from the awareness that is reading the story. The ego is a remarkable achievement. It is the result of millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of cultural development, and it serves genuinely important functions. The capacity to remember who you were yesterday and anticipate who you will be tomorrow allows you to plan, to learn from experience, to maintain relationships across time, to build things that outlast a single moment of inspiration, The ego is not your enemy. The ego is a tool, a very sophisticated, very useful, very impressive tool. But here is the strange part. When you mistake the tool for the self, when the story of who you are becomes so completely identified with what you actually are, the tool takes over. The map becomes more real than the territory it represents. And you find yourself living inside the map, inside the story, inside the character, while the actual living reality of the moment, which is always more vivid and more strange and more alive than any story about it, passes by just outside the frame of your attention. Have you ever been in the middle of a beautiful experience? A sunset, a piece of music, a conversation with someone you love, and notice that part of your mind was narrating it, recording it, categorizing it, planning to tell someone about it later, comparing it to other beautiful experiences you have had, thinking about how it will end? Have you noticed that in those moments, you were partly absent from the thing you were supposedly experiencing? Present in body, but somewhere else in mind, already turning the living moment into a memory before it had even finished being a moment. That is the ego doing its thing. That is the narrator, the story maker, the self-constructor, doing what it is always doing, taking the raw, immediate, unfiltered reality of experience and running it through the machinery of interpretation and narrative, turning it into something that can be stored and compared and communicated and used. This is useful. It is necessary. It is part of what makes us human. But it comes at a cost. The cost is presence. The cost is the full, vivid, unrepeatable aliveness of the moment as it actually is, before the mind has finished turning it into something else. And Alan Watts spent his whole life pointing at this, pointing at the cost, pointing at the gap between the living reality and the story about the living reality. Not to eliminate the story, that would be neither possible nor desirable, but to make the gap visible, to let you see, just for a moment, that the story is a story, and that underneath the story, beneath the narrator, prior to the character and the name and the history and the ambitions and the fears, there is something else, something simpler, something that does not need a story to justify its existence, something that simply is, the way the sky simply is, the way the ocean simply is, requiring no explanation and no defense and no improvement. You have been that something, always. Even at your most anxious, even at your most overwhelmed, even in the moments when the story felt the most real and the most urgent and the most inescapable, you have been that something. It is not something you lost and need to find. It is not something you need to earn or achieve or become. It is what you are right now, underneath the reading and the thinking and the wondering about whether any of this is true. It is the awareness that is listening to this right now. It is the noticing of the noticing, the silence behind the sounds, the space in which the thoughts appear and disappear, the way clouds appear and disappear in a sky that is never itself a cloud. Let yourself rest in that for a moment, not trying to find it, not trying to become it, just acknowledging that it is here, that awareness is present, that something in you is receiving these words and the silence between them, and that this receiving is completely effortless, completely natural, requiring nothing from you except what you are already doing, which is simply being here. Good. Just that. Just here. Just now. Let the breath continue on its own. Let the body continue its slow settling. Let the thoughts continue to arise and dissolve. They will do that regardless, it is what thoughts do, like bubbles rising through still water. And let your attention rest very gently on the awareness itself, the openness in which all of this is happening, rather than on any particular content of that awareness. Now let me tell you about the night sky. On a clear night, far from city lights, the sky above you is not dark. It is brilliant. It is so full of light that the human eye cannot take in all of it at once, cannot count even a fraction of the stars that are there, cannot begin to comprehend the depth of what it is looking at. The nearest stars just a few light years away, the distant ones, hundreds of thousands of light years. The faint smudge of the Andromeda galaxy, 2.5 million light years distant, and yet visible to the naked eye. A ghost of light that left its source before the first of our ancestors walked upright on this planet. When you lie on your back in the dark and look up at the sky, really look, with your eyes relaxed and wide, and not trying to focus on any single point, letting the whole field of vision rest gently on the whole field of stars. Something happens. Something that is very hard to describe, but that almost everyone who has done it has recognized. A feeling of vastness that is somehow not frightening. A feeling of being very small that is somehow not diminishing. A feeling of belonging to something so large that the ordinary measurements of importance and worth and success and failure simply cease to apply, the way that the ordinary measurements of temperature cease to apply inside the sun. Very few people ever notice this. Very few people ever actually stop and let the sky do what the sky does when you let it. The feeling of being exactly the right size, exactly the right shape, exactly the right kind of thing to be in this exact place, in this exact moment. Not despite your smallness relative to the universe, but because of it. Because the smallness, seen clearly, is not smallness at all. It is the recognition that you are part of something vast, that the vast thing is your home, that you came from it and belong to it and are made of the same stuff as the stars you are looking at. Carl Sagan said that we are made of star stuff. Alan Watts would have agreed, but he would have said something a little different. He would have said that we are not merely made of the stuff that stars are made of, as if stars were the original thing and we were a derivative copy. He would have said that we are what the universe does in this particular region of space and time. That the universe does not make people the way a factory makes products. The universe grows people the way a tree grows leaves, from within, from the same substance, by the same process, as a natural and inevitable expression of what the universe is. You did not arrive in the universe. You arrived as the universe. You are an event that the universe is having, the way a thunderstorm is an event that the atmosphere has, not something separate from the atmosphere that happens to occur within it, but an expression of the atmosphere's own energy and nature, the atmosphere doing what atmospheres do under the right conditions. And this changes things. This changes everything if you let it actually land, Because if you are an event that the universe is having, then the universe is not something other than you that you need to navigate or survive or make peace with. It is not a foreign country that you have woken up in and must somehow figure out how to live in. It is you, at a larger scale. It is the you that you came from. It is the context that makes your existence possible, and that is made of the same thing you are made of, and that is going in the same direction you are going. And its future and your future are not separate futures that may or may not happen to align. They are the same future. The way the future of the wave and the future of the ocean are the same future. Let me tell you about something that happened to Alan Watts when he was a young man, that shaped everything he would spend the rest of his life thinking about and talking about. He had an experience, not a dramatic one, not a thunderbolt from the sky, not the kind of thing you see depicted in religious paintings with light streaming down and figures prostrate on the ground. It was quieter than that, more ordinary, in a way that made it more profound rather than less. He was sitting in a garden in England on an autumn evening, and he was not trying to have any kind of experience. He was not meditating. He was not praying. He was not doing anything in particular. He was simply sitting, and the light was doing what autumn evening light does, which is soften and warm, and make everything seem slightly more real than usual, slightly more vivid, slightly more present. And in that sitting, in that ordinary autumn evening, something in his mind simply stopped. Not stopped in the sense of going blank or losing consciousness. Stopped in the sense of the running, the commentary, the constant internal monologue of self-reference. For a moment, it ceased. And in the silence of that cessation, he described experiencing something that he spent the rest of his life trying to find words for. Not peace exactly, though it was peaceful. Not joy exactly, though it was joyful. Something more fundamental than either. Something that felt like the recognition of what had always been the case, as if a film that had been playing over his eyes had briefly been removed, and he was seeing directly without it. And what he saw directly without the film was that everything was all right. Not that everything was perfect in the sense of being arranged exactly as he might have chosen. Not that all problems had been solved or all difficulties removed. But that at a deeper level, at the level of what things actually were, rather than what the frightened mind made of them, there was nothing wrong. There was simply this moment, this garden, this autumn light, this breath, this awareness, and it was, in itself, complete. He described it as the discovery that beneath the story of his life, beneath the anxieties and ambitions and regrets and hopes, there was a ground, a foundation, not made of any particular thing, not located in any particular place, not dependent on any particular condition being met, just there, just stable, just the quiet, unwavering fact of being aware in the present moment, which turned out to be enough, more than enough, the whole thing, in fact. And this is what he spent the rest of his life trying to communicate. Not a doctrine, not a set of rules, not a spiritual technique that you have to practice for years before it works. Just a pointing at the thing that is already here, that has always been here, that requires no effort to access, because you are always already inside it, the way the fish is already inside the water, the way the wave is already the ocean. Very few people ever notice this, because the noticing does not come through effort. The noticing does not come through seeking. The noticing comes through stopping, through the cessation of the seeking, even briefly, even for one moment of genuine stillness. And in that cessation, the thing that was always there before the seeking began quietly makes itself known. Here is something worth thinking about as you rest tonight. The universe is approximately 14 billion years old. The Earth is approximately 4.5 billion years old. Life on Earth has been evolving for approximately 3.5 billion years. Human beings, in anything like our current form, have been here for perhaps 300,000 years. You have been here in this particular form for whatever number of years you have been alive. Now, through all of those 14 billion years, through the long, cold dark of the early universe, before the first stars had formed, when there was nothing but hydrogen and helium slowly condensing under gravity, through the ignition of the first stars and their burning, and their eventual spectacular deaths that scattered the heavier elements they had made into space, through the formation of galaxies and solar systems and planets, through the long, slow, patient work of chemistry becoming biology, of molecules becoming cells, of cells becoming organisms, of organisms becoming this extraordinary branching tree of life that fills every available niche on this particular planet. Through all of that, reality was here. Awareness was here. Whatever it is that makes this moment the kind of moment that can be experienced, rather than just the kind of moment that occurs mechanically without anyone home to notice it, that was here. Not as a person, not as a separate consciousness floating outside the universe watching it develop, but as the inside of things, as what it is like to be the universe from within, rather than what it looks like to observe the universe from without. And you are that. You are the universe experiencing itself in the particular form of a person lying down in the dark, listening to words that are trying to point at something that cannot quite be said, but which your awareness already knows, in the way that water knows wetness, not as a fact about itself, but as what it is. This is not a metaphor, or rather it is a metaphor, but it is a metaphor pointing at something real. When the great mystical traditions of the world, Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, Sufi, the mystical currents within Christianity and Judaism and Islam, when all of these very different traditions, arising in very different cultures across very different centuries, keep pointing at the same thing, keep arriving at the same basic recognition through completely different paths, that is worth paying attention to. Not as a religious claim, not as something you have to believe on faith, but as a pattern of pointing, as a convergence of human experience from which some inference about what is actually being pointed at seems warranted. And what all of those traditions are pointing at, in their different languages with their different metaphors, is the recognition that the deepest thing you are is not the name and the story and the history and the ambitions. It is the awareness itself, the light that lights the mind, the knowing that knows, the presence that is present. Call it what you will, soul, Atman, Buddha nature, the Tao, pure consciousness, the ground of being. All of these are just fingers pointing at the moon. And the moon is not any of the fingers. The moon is the moon. It was there before any of the fingers. It will be there after all the fingers are gone. And it is visible right now, in the sky above wherever you are, or wherever you imagine yourself to be, shining calmly on a world that does not need it to explain itself. Breathe. Just breathe. Let the in-breath come all the way in, all the way down, filling you from the bottom up. And let the out-breath go all the way out, slowly, completely, releasing everything it is carrying. The out-breath does not need anything. The out-breath is the body's most natural act of letting go. And you can let the rest of you follow it. Let the thoughts go with the out-breath. Let the worries go with the out-breath. Let the to-do list and the replayed conversations and the half-formed plans all drift out on the out-breath, slowly, without effort, without force. And then the next in-breath arrives. Of course it does. It always does. You have never had to make it come. You have breathed approximately 12 to 20 times every minute for your entire life, while sleeping and waking, while excited and calm, while thinking hard and while dreaming, and you have never once had to remember to do it. The body knows. The body has always known. The life in you does not require your management. The life in you is doing what it has been doing for billions of years, in one form or another, and it is doing it right now, in you, because you are what life is doing right now in this particular place and time. Let me tell you about silence. Not the silence of an empty room, which is never truly silent, full of the hum of appliances and the distant sounds of the world outside, and the sounds of your own body, the heartbeat and the breath, and the subtle sounds of the nervous system doing its work. But the inner silence, the silence that is present even when sounds are present, the silence that underlies all sounds, the way the sky underlies all weather. Not something that the weather reveals by going away, but something that was always there, that the weather appears within, that is not touched or diminished by any amount of storm or sunshine. When you listen to music, really listen with your full attention, not as background to something else. You are not only hearing the notes, you are hearing the silences between the notes. And those silences are not merely absences. They are the structure within which the notes have their meaning. A note that follows immediately after another note, without any space between them, is not the same musical event as a note that comes after a moment of silence. The silence shapes the note. The silence gives the note its quality, its weight, its meaning in the context of everything that has come before and everything that will come after. Your thoughts are like notes. The spaces between your thoughts are like silences. And the awareness that hears both the thoughts and the silences is like the ear that hears both the music and the quiet. Very few people ever notice the spaces between their thoughts, because we are trained from birth to attend to the content of the mind, to what we are thinking, what we are feeling, what we are planning, what we are remembering. We are trained to attend to the notes and to pass through the silences as quickly as possible on the way to the next note. But the silences are where the music lives. The silences are where the music has its power. And the awareness that is present in the silences is the same awareness that is present in the sounds, unchanged by either, undisturbed by either, simply open and receiving and completely, perfectly still at its depth, regardless of what is happening at its surface. You can rest there tonight. You can let your attention sink below the level of the thoughts, below the level of the sounds, to the awareness that contains them. Not by pushing the thoughts away. That never works, and the effort itself is just more noise. Not by trying to make the mind go blank. That is like trying to make the ocean flat by commanding the waves to stop. But simply by shifting the direction of your attention from the content to the container, from the thoughts to the thinking, from the sounds to the hearing. And this is where something interesting happens. When you rest your attention on the awareness itself, on the simple, open, present quality of knowing that is always already here, you discover something surprising. You discover that it is effortless. You discover that you do not need to do anything to be aware. You do not need to create awareness or maintain it or protect it or earn it. It is simply what is already the case. It is the most natural thing in the world. It is, in fact, the one thing that requires no effort whatsoever, because it is prior to effort. It is the space in which effort occurs. It is the awareness that would notice the effort if you were making any. You have been aware your entire life without ever trying to be. The awareness has been here through sleep and waking, through good days and bad days, through childhood and adolescence, and every age you have been since. The awareness was here before you learned your name, before you developed the concept of I, before the ego story had been constructed. And it will be here, in some form, after the story ends. Not as a personal continuation of your particular narrative, but as the awareness itself, which is not personal, which does not belong to you any more than the sky belongs to any particular cloud, which is simply what is present when anything at all is present. Let me tell you about water. Water is one of the most extraordinary substances in the universe, and not only for the obvious reasons, the fact that it covers most of the Earth's surface, that it makes up most of your body, that life as we know it requires it in liquid form. Water is extraordinary for its philosophical qualities, for the way it behaves, which is so perfectly aligned with the deepest truths about reality, that it is almost as if it were designed as a teaching. Water takes the shape of whatever contains it. Pour water into a bowl and it becomes a bowl-shaped thing. Pour it into a glass and it becomes a glass-shaped thing. Pour it under the ground and it spreads into whatever shape the ground allows, finding its way through the smallest available space, always moving toward the lowest point, never forcing, never resisting, simply doing what water does with complete and unwavering consistency. This is not passivity. Watch water long enough, and you will see that there is enormous power in this non-resistance. A river can cut through solid rock over time, not because water is harder than rock, but because water never insists on any particular path. It tries everything. It takes every avenue. It fills every crack. And eventually, the rock yields to the water, not because the water forced it, but because the water never stopped being exactly what it is. Lao Tzu.
the ancient Chinese philosopher whose book, the Tao Te Ching, is one of the most remarkable documents in human history, spoke extensively about water as a model for how to live. Not because he was a romantic about nature, but because water embodies a principle that he called Wu Wei, which is sometimes translated as non-action, but is more accurately translated as acting in accordance with the nature of things. Not forcing, not pushing against, not straining and struggling to make reality be something other than what it is, but finding, like water, the natural way through, the path of least resistance that is also, paradoxically, the most powerful path. Most human suffering comes from acting against the nature of things, from trying to hold on to what is passing, from trying to push away what is arriving, from trying to be somewhere other than where you are, some time other than when you are, something other than what you are. Water never does this. Water is always exactly where it is, exactly what it is, doing exactly what it does. And because of that complete, unconditional acceptance of its own nature and circumstances, water accomplishes the most extraordinary things, effortlessly, without strain, without regret, without anxiety about what will happen next. What would your life feel like if you could be a little more like water tonight? Not tomorrow, not in some future state of enlightenment or accomplishment or resolution. Tonight, right now, in this darkness, in this rest, what would it feel like to simply allow yourself to be exactly where you are, exactly as you are, with no resistance, no agenda, no attempt to be anywhere else or anyone else, or feel anything other than what you are feeling? It might feel strange at first, the habitual reaching, the habitual striving, the habitual effort to manage your experience. All of that has momentum. It does not stop immediately when you decide to let it stop. It is like a wheel that has been spinning fast for a long time. When you remove the force that was spinning it, it does not stop immediately. It continues to spin, slowing gradually, and you can feel the slowing happening. You can feel the momentum draining away, and then slower still, and then slower, until finally the wheel is still, and there is a kind of relief in the stillness, a kind of satisfaction, the satisfaction of something that has been doing unnecessary work for a long time, finally being allowed to rest. That is what is happening right now, as you listen to this. The wheel is slowing, the effort is draining away, not because you are doing anything to make it happen. You cannot force yourself to relax, the way you cannot force water to be still by striking it with your hand. But because the conditions are right for it, because the darkness and the warmth and the comfortable weight of the body and the slow breath and the quiet voice and the passing of time are all conspiring together, gently, without urgency, to create the conditions in which rest is the natural thing to do. And the mind, which has been working so hard all day, so relentlessly doing its thing, the planning and the worrying and the cataloging and the commentary, the mind also wants to rest. It just sometimes needs permission. It sometimes needs to hear from somewhere outside itself that it is allowed to stop, that the work is done for today,
that nothing requires its attention right now, that all the unsolved problems and unfinished thoughts and unresolved tensions will still be there tomorrow if they matter. And if they don't matter, they will dissolve in the night like fog dissolving in the morning sun. And either way, there is nothing to be done about any of them right now. So the mind can rest. You are allowed to let it rest. You can even feel something like gratitude toward it. It has been working very hard, your mind, for the whole of this long day, for the whole of this long life, doing its best to keep you safe and functional and connected and alive. It deserves rest. You deserve rest. And rest is not the opposite of awareness. Rest is what awareness looks like when it is not carrying anything extra. Rest is the natural state of a consciousness that has temporarily set down its luggage. Let me tell you something about the present moment that might surprise you. The present moment is the only thing that has never not existed. Think about that. Everything else, every person, every star, every idea, every emotion, every civilization that has ever risen and fallen, all of it has had a beginning and will have an end. But the present moment, the sheer fact of now, has never had a beginning and will never have an end. Every moment that has ever existed was, when it was happening, the present moment. Every moment that will ever exist will be, when it is happening, the present moment. The present moment is not a point in time that moves along a timeline. The present moment is the timeline's only reality. Past and future are the mind's categories, the mind's way of organizing experience into a story. But the actual reality, the thing itself, the living fact, is always and only ever the present moment. This is not a philosophical trick. It is not wordplay. It is pointing at something that is genuinely, actually, literally true. You have never experienced anything except in the present moment. Every memory you have of the past, you are experiencing that memory now, in the present. Every plan or anticipation you have of the future, you are experiencing that anticipation now, in the present. The past and the future exist as ideas in the present. They are not themselves present. Only the present is present. And this means something extraordinary. It means that the present moment is your home in a way that no physical place can be. It is your home because you can never leave it. You have never left it. You will never leave it. It is not somewhere you have to find or return to or work your way toward. It is where you are, always, without exception, regardless of where your thoughts might be traveling or what story your mind might be telling about the past or the future. You are in the present moment right now. You have always been in the present moment. The present moment is, in the most literal sense, the ground of your being. And the present moment has a very particular quality that is easy to miss because it is so familiar. The present moment is always perfectly still. Not still in the sense that nothing is happening in it. Things are always happening in it. Your heart is beating in it. The stars are moving in it. The planet is turning in it. But still in the sense that the moment itself does not move. It does not go anywhere. It stays here. The events in it arise and pass, like waves on the ocean,
But the ocean itself, the moment itself, does not go anywhere. It simply is, completely still, completely present, completely here. This is the peace that Alan Watts was pointing at, not the peace that comes after the conflict is resolved, not the peace that you will feel when you have finally achieved all the things you are trying to achieve, but the peace that is already present, already here, in the absolute stillness of the moment itself, which is always here, which cannot be taken from you, which is in fact what you are made of. But here is the strange part. We spend most of our lives not in the present moment. Not literally. We cannot actually leave the present moment, as we just discussed. But in our attention, in our awareness, we spend most of our lives attending to thoughts about the past and the future, to the ongoing narrative of the self, to the problems to be solved and the pleasures to be secured. We spend most of our lives inside the map rather than in the territory, inside the story rather than in the reality. And the reality, the vivid, immediate, completely alive reality of the present moment, passes by, mostly unattended. And this is the strange tragedy of ordinary human life, seen from the perspective of someone who has caught a glimpse of what is actually available. Not that life contains too much suffering or too little pleasure, but that we are almost always, almost everywhere, just slightly absent from the extraordinary thing that is happening, just slightly removed from the sheer, bare, uncategorized fact of being here at all. Tonight, right now, in this darkness and this rest, you can be here, fully here. Not because you are trying to be enlightened, not because you are doing anything special, but simply because the conditions are aligned. The body is at rest. The responsibilities are set aside for the night. There is nothing demanding your attention, nothing requiring your immediate response. And in this space of having nothing to do, you can simply be. And in simply being, the present moment, which has always been here, makes itself known a little more clearly than usual. Not as a dramatic revelation, not as a flash of insight or an ecstatic experience, but as a quiet recognition, a quiet settling, a quiet coming to rest in what has always already been the case. Good. Rest there, just in the quiet recognition of the present moment. Let the thoughts continue their arising and dissolving. Let the body continue its slow, steady, completely trustworthy processes. Let the darkness be dark, and the warmth be warm, and the night be the night. You do not have to do anything with any of this. You do not have to make it mean anything or go anywhere. You can just let it be what it is. Now, I want to take you somewhere. Not physically. We are staying exactly where we are, in this comfortable darkness. But in imagination, in that easy, half-dreaming way that the mind moves when it is this relaxed and this quiet. I want to take you to the edge of the ocean at night. It is late. The beach is empty. The sky is full of stars, more stars than you would see from most cities, because out here near the water, the horizon is unobstructed, and the air is clean, and the darkness is the deep, rich kind of darkness that cities cannot produce. The stars are not scattered randomly. You can see the Milky Way, the river of our galaxy, arching overhead from horizon to horizon. And it looks less like a painted backdrop and more like something genuine, something truly there, a real feature of the real sky, which it is. The ocean is here. You can hear it before you see it. The low, constant, rhythmic sound of the waves, steady as a heartbeat, older than any heartbeat that has ever beaten on this planet. The sound of water doing what water does on a shoreline, which it has been doing for as long as this planet has had shores and oceans and the forces of tide and wind to move them. The sound is not just sound. It is a feeling, a vibration that comes through the air and through the sand and up through the soles of your feet if you are standing, or through the ground beneath you if you are lying down. It is the earth's pulse. You walk to the edge of the water, or you are already at the edge. You have been here all along. You simply notice now that you are here. And you sit down on the cool sand above the tide line, where the sand is dry and soft from the day's sun, and you look out at the water. You cannot see where it ends. The ocean extends to the horizon in every direction you can face, and the horizon is invisible in the dark. Only a slightly different quality of darkness where the water ends and the sky begins. And the stars come all the way down to that invisible line, and some of the lower ones are reflected in the still water between the waves, so that you seem to be surrounded by stars, above and below, floating in the midst of them, held in a sphere of ancient light. The waves come in and go out, come in and go out. Each wave is slightly different from the last, a little larger, a little smaller, a little more diagonal in its approach, a little more churning in its breaking. No two waves are the same. The ocean never exactly repeats itself, and yet the rhythm is so consistent, so deeply regular beneath the surface variation, that it becomes something more than sound. It becomes the background of reality. It becomes the thing against which everything else is happening, the silence within which all sounds occur. You breathe with the waves, not consciously, not deliberately, but naturally, the way a body responds to rhythm when the rhythm is slow enough and steady enough. The in-breath with the waves advance, the out-breath with the waves retreat, the brief pause between breaths with the moment of highest water before it pulls back. It is not something you are doing, it is something that is happening to you, through you, as you. The boundary between you and the ocean is very thin right now. The boundary between your rhythm and the ocean's rhythm is very thin. You are made of water, most of you, and the water in you knows the ocean, recognizes it, responds to it the way old friends respond when they have been separated for a while and find themselves in the same room again. There is something the ocean is telling you, not in words, not in any language that the thinking mind can translate directly, but in the experience of sitting beside it in the dark, in the slow, deep language of rhythm and presence and scale. The ocean is old, incomprehensibly old by the scale of human lives. It has been doing this, washing against these shores, rising and falling with the tides, evaporating into clouds and falling as rain, and running back to the sea through rivers and groundwater and 1,000 other pathways.
It has been doing this for longer than there has been anything to watch it do it. And it is not worried. It is not anxious about the future. It is not replaying the past. It is just doing what it does in this moment, completely, perfectly, without any sense that anything is missing. This is the teaching, not told, but shown, not explained, but demonstrated. The ocean does not know the teaching. The ocean does not know anything in the cognitive sense. But the ocean embodies the teaching, the way a tree embodies photosynthesis, not knowing it, not choosing it, but completely and perfectly living it. And when you sit beside the ocean in the dark and let yourself be open to it, something in you that does know, something in you that has always known, recognizes what it is seeing, recognizes the simplicity and the completeness of it, the way things can simply be, without explanation, without justification, without needing to be anything other than what they are. You are like the ocean more than you know. There is a surface to you that is always in motion, thought and feeling and sensation, rising and falling, appearing and dissolving, never quite still, never quite the same from moment to moment. And there is a depth to you, far below the surface, far below the reach of ordinary attention, that is completely and perfectly still. Not still because nothing is happening there, but still in the way that the deep ocean is still, where no wind or tide or storm reaches, where the pressure is equalized, and the temperature is constant, and the darkness is complete, and the only movement is the very slow, very ancient circulation of the deep current, which has been moving in the same direction since before human beings existed. That depth is in you, not as something you have built or earned or developed, as something that has always been there, underneath the surface activity, underneath the story of the self, underneath the noise of the mind. It has been there since before you were born, in the sense that what it is made of has been there since before you were born. It will be there after the surface activity has ceased, in the sense that what it is made of will continue in other forms, long after this particular wave has run its course. And tonight, you can rest in that depth. You can let the surface continue its movement, thoughts arising and dissolving, sensations coming and going, the faint sounds of the night doing their thing. And you can also let your awareness sink slowly, as awareness can sink when nothing is demanding its stay at the surface, down into the quieter water, down into the place where the movement is slower, and the temperature is constant, and the darkness is complete, and the stillness is so total that it feels, paradoxically, like the most alive thing you have ever felt. Let me tell you about the stars again, because the stars have something to say that the ocean hasn't quite said yet. The light that reaches your eyes when you look at the night sky is not current. It is not live. Every star you see is in the past. The nearest star to our sun, a small red dwarf called Proxima Centauri, is 4 light years away, which means the light from it that falls on your eyes tonight left that star 4 years ago. The brightest star in the night sky, Sirius, is 8 light years away. The stars that make up the familiar constellations are between tens and hundreds of light years away.
The faint smudges of distant galaxies that you can see with binoculars on a clear night are millions or billions of light years away. When you look at the sky, you are looking at the past. The stars you see may no longer exist. Some of them certainly do not. They burned out millions of years ago, but the light of their ending has not yet reached us, and so we still see them, still count them, still name the constellations that include them, not knowing that the source of that ancient light is already gone. This is one of the most extraordinary facts about reality, and also one of the most ordinary facts, in the sense that it is simply true all the time, every night, every time anyone looks up. We are always surrounded by the past. The universe that we perceive is not the universe as it is right now. It is the universe as it was. A slightly different universe for every object we look at, depending on how far away it is, and therefore how old the light we are receiving is. The only thing that is truly present is the present. The only thing that is right here, right now, truly current, is this moment, this awareness, this breath, this darkness, this rest. Everything beyond the reach of your immediate senses is, strictly speaking, a message from the past. Some parts of it a very recent past. The sound from across the room a fraction of a second old. The light from the window a billionth of a second old. But a past nonetheless. And the further out you reach, the further back in time you are looking. And this means something remarkable. It means that this moment, right here, right now, is the frontier, the absolute edge of what has happened so far, the most recent event in the entire 14 billion year history of the universe. Everything that has ever occurred led to this moment. Every exploding star, every collision of galaxies, every slow billion-year evolution of life on every planet that has life, all of it is in some sense the backstory, the origin story, the long, slow preparation for this particular moment of awareness noticing itself in the dark. That is not grandiosity. That is simply how time works, and it makes every moment the most important moment, not in the sense of being more important than other moments, but in the sense of being the only moment that is actually current, the only moment that is actually now, the only moment in which anything can be done, or experienced, or changed, or appreciated. This moment. Not the one before it, and not the one after it. This one, in which you are breathing and resting, and allowing your mind to soften, and your body to sink, and the night to do what nights do. Let it be enough. Let this be the one thing that is enough. The present moment, which requires nothing added to it, which is complete in itself, which is the whole of reality compressed into the absolute now. Here is something very few people ever stop to consider. The thing that you call I, the sense of being a particular self, this self located here, now, with this name and this history, and this particular way of experiencing the world. That sense of I is itself an experience. It is not the experiencer. It is not the awareness. It is something that appears within awareness, just as thoughts and feelings and perceptions appear within awareness. You can notice this if you look carefully enough, with enough willingness to be surprised by what you find.
when you look for the I, when you actually turn your attention toward the source of the sense of self, rather than just taking that sense of self for granted, you find thoughts, sensations, memories, images, feelings. You find a stream of things arising and dissolving in awareness. But you do not find a separate, solid, located self that is doing the experiencing.
You find experience happening. You find awareness present. But the separate entity that seems to be the subject of the experience, the little man in the head, the ghost in the machine, the soul in the body, when you actually look for that, it isn't quite there in the way you expected it to be. The philosopher David Hume noticed this in the 18th century. He wrote that when he looked inside himself, he could never catch himself. He could only find some particular perception or other, some impression or idea, but never the self that was supposed to be having these impressions and ideas. He found this disturbing. It seemed to undermine the whole foundation of his philosophy. If there is no stable, persistent self, then how can there be personal identity? How can you be the same person you were yesterday if you cannot find the self that persists through both days? Alan Watts would have found this question delightful rather than disturbing, because the difficulty, from Watts's perspective, was not with the self being absent. The difficulty was with looking for it in the wrong direction. Hume looked for the self as an object of experience, as something he could find and examine and confirm as really there. And of course he did not find it there, because the self is not an object of experience. It is the subject. It is the looking itself. It is the awareness that is doing the searching. You cannot find the I by looking. The I is what is doing the looking, and therefore it can see everything except itself. You cannot see the seeing. You can only see with the seeing. And the self, the real self, the awareness that is reading these words, the presence that is present to this moment, is like that. It is not something that can be found as an object, but it is unmistakably, undeniably here as the subject, as the space in which everything else appears. And this space, this awareness, this presence, this open, clear, perfectly still and perfectly alive quality of knowing, this is not small. This is not enclosed. This is not limited to the boundary of the skin. This is the most expansive thing there is. This is the space that contains the whole of experience. This is the only context in which any experience whatsoever can occur. And it is right here. It is what is reading these words. It is what is present to this moment. It is, in the most literal and immediate sense, what you are. And here is the beautiful thing. That space, that awareness, is not separate from the universe. It is not inside the universe looking out. It is not a small patch of consciousness in a mostly unconscious cosmos. If the universe is conscious, and in the sense that the universe is aware of itself through you right now, in this very moment, then consciousness is not a tiny, local, exceptional thing. Consciousness is what the universe is doing, at least in this corner of it. Consciousness is the universe's way of being present to itself, and you are how it does that. You, specifically. Not as a representative of your species, not as an average human, not as a statistical sample of consciousness in the universe, but you,
this particular configuration of matter and energy and experience, with your particular memories and particular ways of perceiving and particular sensitivities and particular depths and particular ways of being moved by things. You are a unique and unrepeatable way that the universe has of being present to itself. There has never been anything quite like you before, and there will never be anything quite like you after. This exact combination of everything you are has occurred once in 14 billion years, and is occurring now, in this moment, and is extraordinarily precious, not because it is important in the way that famous things are important, but because it is real in the way that only existing things can be real. You exist. Completely, fully, really exist. Right now, in this darkness, in this rest. This is not a small thing. This is the most remarkable thing. And the depth and the beauty of it does not require anything additional to be remarkable. It simply is remarkable, in itself, for itself, as itself. Let me tell you about something that Alan Watts called the backwards law. It is one of his most useful observations, and it is one that becomes more and more true the more you examine your own experience of trying to manage your inner life. The backwards law says, essentially, that the more you try to get something, the more you ensure that you feel the lack of it. If you are trying to be happy, you are constantly reminding yourself that you are not happy enough yet. If you are trying to be relaxed, you are focusing your attention on the tension, which makes it harder to release. If you are trying to fall asleep, the trying itself is a form of wakefulness that prevents the sleep. If you are trying to be present, the effort of trying takes you out of the presence you are trying to achieve. This is maddening until you see the way through it. And the way through it is not to stop caring whether you are happy or relaxed or present or asleep. The way through it is to understand that these states are not achievements. They are not things you produce by effort. They are things that arise naturally, in the absence of the effort to produce them. Happiness is what arises when you stop worrying about whether you are happy. Relaxation is what arises when you stop trying to force yourself to relax. Sleep is what arises when you give up the project of making yourself fall asleep and simply allow the night to do what nights do. This is not passivity. This is not giving up. This is a more sophisticated understanding of how these things work, a more honest relationship with the nature of the inner life, which is not a machine that produces desired outputs in response to the correct inputs. The inner life is more like a garden. You can create the conditions, you can remove the obstacles, you can water the soil and provide the light, but you cannot make the flowers grow. The flowers grow on their own, or they do not grow, and the forcing does not help and usually harms. So tonight, we are not trying to fall asleep. We are simply creating the conditions. We are resting in the dark and breathing slowly and letting the mind wander through these gentle thoughts and allowing the body to do what the body knows how to do. We are not achieving anything. We are releasing the project of achievement for a little while, setting it down as you set down a heavy bag when you finally reach the door and put down the key and step inside and are home, finally home, and there is nothing left to carry. Set it down. Whatever you are still carrying, the unfinished thought, the unresolved feeling, the thing you did not do today, the thing you are worried about tomorrow, set it down for tonight. Not because it is not real or not important, but because tonight is not the time for it. Tonight is the time for rest. Tonight is the time for the simple, unambitious, completely adequate act of being here, in this body, in this darkness, in this breath, in this moment. The night is doing what nights do. The darkness outside your window is the same darkness that has surrounded this planet every night for 4.5 billion years. The stars above you, even if you cannot see them through the ceiling, through the walls, through the clouds, the stars are there. They are always there. The Milky Way is arching overhead right now, billions of ancient suns moving through the dark, carrying their planets on their gravitational strings, each of those planets doing whatever those planets do, some of them cold and empty, some of them perhaps full of something we would be amazed to recognize. All of them part of the same vast, slow, extraordinarily complex process that produced, among other things, this night, this darkness, and you. I want to tell you about a particular kind of experience that is very common, but very rarely talked about. It happens in the moments just before sleep, in the hypnagogic state, as it is technically called, the borderland between waking and sleeping, where the mind loosens its grip on ordinary reality, but has not yet let go completely. In this state, thoughts become images, images become scenes, scenes become brief, vivid, fleeting dreams that dissolve as soon as you try to look at them directly. The way the stars, in a certain part of the sky, become visible when you look slightly away from them, but disappear when you look directly at them. In this borderland state, very interesting things can happen. Insights arise that seem very clear and very important, and then dissolve before you can quite grasp them. Connections between things that seemed unrelated suddenly seem obvious. The connection so clear that you wonder how you never saw it before. And then that too dissolves. Faces appear that are not the faces of anyone you know. Places appear that are not places you have been. Brief stories begin that have no particular direction, narratives without apparent point, simply images and emotions arising and unfolding and dissolving in the dark of the closing mind. This is the mind releasing its grip. This is the narrative self, the ego story, letting go of its constant project of maintaining coherence and continuity and identity. In the hypnagogic state, the rigid categories of ordinary awareness soften. The walls between different kinds of thought become permeable. The strict separation between memory and imagination, between what has been and what is merely being invented, begins to blur. And something that was always there, but always underneath, the creative, associative, non-linear, non-narrative intelligence of the deep mind, that begins to surface. Not to think about anything, not to solve any problem, not to go anywhere in particular, simply to do what it does, which is to play, to make images and stories and connections, not for any purpose, but simply because that is its nature. The way water makes shapes when you pour it, the way light makes patterns when it passes through something complex, The deep mind plays with reality, the way children play with whatever is available. Completely absorbed, completely present, no destination in mind, just the joy of the making. Let it play tonight. Let the thoughts become images. Let the images become scenes. Let the scenes dissolve into other scenes without any insistence on continuity or coherence or meaning. You do not have to follow the logic of anything. You do not have to understand anything that arises. You can simply observe it, lightly and from a distance, the way you might watch clouds from a hilltop on a summer afternoon, noticing their shapes, their movement, their slow transformation from one thing into another, without needing to know what any of it means or where any of it is going. The mind knows how to do this. It has always known how to do this. It does it every night, in the dreams that carry you through the dark hours.
Tonight you can begin the process a little more consciously, a little more peacefully, a little more with the sense that you are at the wheel of the most fascinating vehicle in the known universe, a human mind, which is the most complex object in existence, which can imagine the entire universe and then question whether the imagining is adequate, which can love and doubt and wonder and grieve and find beauty in almost everything, which is doing all of this right now, even in this approach to sleep, even in this gradual releasing of the day and the self and the story, doing it beautifully, naturally, without effort, exactly as it was always going to do. Here is a question worth drifting with as you sink toward sleep. What was here before you were born? Not what was on the planet, not what was in the universe. Those are interesting questions, but they are the outer kind of question, the kind that science can make genuine progress on. I mean the inner question. What was awareness before it became your awareness? What was consciousness before it was particular and personal and yours? Because the universe was certainly here before you. Life on this planet was here. Consciousness, in some form, has probably been here for millions of years in the various creatures that preceded you. And the atoms that make up your body, and the energy that flows through your nervous system, and the fundamental forces that make it possible for anything to exist at all. All of these were here, long before the configuration that is you had assembled itself out of them. So in what sense were you not here before your birth? The materials were here, the patterns were here, the processes were here. What you call you is a particular temporary arrangement of things that were already there. Like a whirlpool in a river. The whirlpool is real. It has a location and a shape and a certain kind of identity. And you can point to it and say, that one there, yes, that whirlpool, distinct from the other whirlpools and from the general flow of the river. And yet the whirlpool is not made of different water than the river. The whirlpool is not separate from the river. The whirlpool is the river doing something particular, in this particular place, for this particular time. And when the whirlpool subsides, as whirlpools do, as all temporary configurations of energy do, it does not go anywhere. It simply becomes the river again, which it always was. What you call death may be something like the whirlpool subsiding. Not a tragedy, not a punishment,
not the end of something precious and irreplaceable. Or rather, it is the end of something precious and irreplaceable in terms of this particular configuration, this particular arrangement of the river. But the river continues. The energy continues. The consciousness continues, not as your consciousness, not as this particular awareness with your name and your memories and your particular way of being in the world, but as consciousness, as the universe's awareness of itself, as the ground from which the next whirlpool will arise, and the one after that, and the one after that, in an endless variety of shapes, each one real, each one temporary, each one the whole river expressing itself in one particular place for one particular time. This is not a consolation prize. I am not saying that death does not matter, or that the ending of any particular life is not a genuine loss. It is. The whirlpool matters. This particular whirlpool, you, matters in ways that cannot be quantified and should not be minimized. The configuration you are is unique and unrepeatable and genuinely precious. But the preciousness is not diminished by the temporariness. In fact, the temporariness is part of what makes it precious.
The cherry blossom is beautiful in part because it blooms for only a week. If it bloomed forever, it would be furniture. You are not furniture. You are the cherry blossom. Brief and extraordinary and completely here, right now, in this particular spring of your particular existence, in full bloom, whether you can see it or not, which you perhaps cannot, because it is very difficult to see your own blossoming when you are busy being it. But you can feel it tonight in the simplest possible way. You can feel the aliveness that is present in this very moment, in the fact that you are warm and breathing and aware, and lying here in the dark, receiving these words with whatever part of you receives words in the dark, with the part that has always been present, always been receiving, always been here before the thinking started, and will be here after the thinking stops. You are alive, right now, in this moment, not tomorrow, not in some imagined future when things will be different and better and more what you hoped for. Right now, and the aliveness is complete. It does not require anything added to it. It is not a partial aliveness, a preliminary aliveness, an aliveness that is waiting for some future condition to be met before it becomes the real thing. This is the real thing, this breath, this awareness, this dark, this moment. Let me tell you about trees for a moment, because trees have something to teach us about being in the world that is very relevant to what we are exploring tonight. A tree does not worry about being a tree. It does not spend its energy trying to be a better tree than the trees around it, or wondering whether it is growing in the right direction, or comparing the quality of its leaves to those of other trees of the same species. A tree simply does what trees do. It grows in the direction of light. It sends its roots toward water. It breathes and filters and converts sunlight into energy and oxygen. It provides shelter and food and habitat to countless other forms of life. It does all of this without effort, without strategy, without self-consciousness, without any sense that it ought to be doing something else. And in doing all of this without effort, it becomes exactly what it is capable of becoming.
The oldest trees on Earth are thousands of years old. They have survived storms and droughts and fires and ice ages, and the rise and fall of the civilizations of the creatures that have lived in their shadows. They are not impressive despite their lack of ambition. They are impressive because of it, because they have never been distracted from doing what they do, because they have never wasted energy on being anything other than a tree. Alan Watts used the word spontaneity in a very specific way. Not spontaneity in the sense of acting without thinking, which can be reckless, but spontaneity in the sense of acting from one's own nature, the way a tree acts from its own nature, the way water acts from its own nature, the way the stars act from their own nature. A spontaneity that is completely aligned with what you fundamentally are, without the distortion and friction of the ego's constant intervention, its second-guessing, and its comparison, and its anxiety about being seen in the right light. You have this somewhere in you, not as something you need to find or develop or achieve, as something that is there, beneath the layers of conditioning and training and the social performance of being the kind of person you are supposed to be, as your original nature, as what you were before the world finished deciding what you should be. Children have it.
You can see it in a very young child who has not yet been fully domesticated by the demand to be a certain kind of person in a certain kind of way. The child moves freely. The child's attention is fully given to whatever has caught its interest, not divided between the interesting thing and the self-consciousness about being interested. The child laughs without monitoring the laugh. The child cries without apologizing for the crying. The child is completely present in the experience of the moment, completely absorbed in it, not standing half outside it and watching itself have it. You were that child. The capacity for that full absorption, that complete presence, that unself-conscious engagement with the living moment, it is not gone. It is underneath. It comes out occasionally, in moments when you forget to be self-conscious, because something has absorbed you so completely that there is no attention left over for monitoring. In deep creative work, in states of physical flow, in moments of great beauty or great laughter or deep love, when the ego temporarily dissolves in something larger than itself. Those moments are real. Those moments are not exceptions to the ordinary life. Those moments are glimpses of what the ordinary life would be like if the ego's management could be, even partially, relaxed. And they are available more often than you think, not as states to be achieved, but as the natural result of simply being present, simply allowing, simply resting in the awareness that is already here, rather than chasing after a different kind of awareness that you imagine would be better. This rest, tonight, is that. This is it, not a preparation for it, not a practice that will someday produce it. This, right now, is the resting in awareness, the allowing, the not achieving, and everything that needs to happen from this can happen by itself, without your help, without your management, without anything from you except the permission to do what it is already doing. So give it that permission, right now, for tonight. Permission to simply be what it is. And this is where something interesting happens. When you give that permission, not to your mind, not to your ego, not to any part of you that has a name or a history or an agenda, but to the awareness itself, to the presence that is simply present, to the whatever it is that is here when everything else is set down. When you give that full permission, a certain quality of peace arrives. Not dramatically, not with any announcement, just quietly, the way the stars appear after the sky has fully darkened, gradually, one by one, and then more, until you realize that what you are looking at is full of light, has always been full of light. You just could not see it until the other lights dimmed enough. That peace is yours tonight. It has always been yours. It was never anywhere else. It was only hidden by the busyness, by the noise, by the urgency of all the things that seem to require your attention, your effort, your worry. And now, in the dark, in the quiet, in the rest, it makes itself known. Not as something new, as something remembered, as something that feels, when you settle into it, like the most familiar thing in the world, like home. Breathe in now, slowly, all the way in, all the way down to the bottom of the lungs, filling the whole chest, the whole belly. And breathe out, slowly, all the way out, emptying completely, releasing everything, and then the natural pause, that brief, still moment between the out-breath and the next in-breath, where there is neither inhaling nor exhaling, where the body is simply being before it begins breathing again. Rest in that pause, just for a moment, just in that absolute stillness.
That pause is the present moment, perfectly expressed. That pause is the gap between thoughts. That pause is the silence between notes. That pause is the eye of the storm, the still center of everything, the place where the action has momentarily ceased, and what is revealed is the awareness itself, empty of content, full of presence, alive without effort, here without needing to have arrived. Good. You are here. You have always been here. The journey was not to this place. The journey was the recognition of this place. The realization that you were already here, had always already been here, would always already be here, and that here is not a location in space, but a condition of awareness, a quality of presence, a way of being in contact with the reality of the moment, rather than always being somewhere else in thought. Here is the secret, not the hidden secret of some occult tradition, not the secret knowledge of an exclusive inner circle, not a secret that someone is keeping from you, but the open secret, the secret that is hiding in plain sight, the secret that is so obvious that it takes a lifetime for most people to notice it. The secret is this: you are already what you have been looking for. Not in a vague or reassuring way, not as a spiritual consolation that sounds nice but does not actually change anything. In a precise and literal way. The awareness you have been seeking, the peace, the presence, the sense of being truly alive in the moment, the feeling of being whole rather than fragmented,
connected rather than isolated, home rather than lost. All of that is not somewhere you are going. It is what you are. It is the awareness that is reading these words. It is the presence that is present to this moment. It is the simplest, most basic, most undeniable fact of your existence. That you are here. That you are aware. That something in you is receiving this moment and will receive the next one and the one after that. That is the whole thing, the whole secret. Everything else, every philosophy, every religion, every tradition, every meditation technique, every therapeutic method, every artistic or scientific or philosophical exploration of what it means to be human, all of it is just pointing at this, at the basic, bare, completely ordinary and completely extraordinary fact of aware presence, of being here. And now, as the night deepens around you, and the thoughts grow slower and further apart, and the body settles even further into its comfortable rest, and the breath moves more and more like the ocean moves, rhythmic and easy and completely without effort. I want to tell you something about what is waiting for you on the other side of sleep. Nothing frightening, nothing demanding, nothing that requires any preparation or accomplishment or work. On the other side of sleep is the morning. And the morning is another present moment just like this one. Another opportunity to be here, fully here, awake in both senses, woken from sleep and awake to the reality of the moment. Another day in which the ocean is still the ocean, and the sky is still the sky, and you are still you, which is to say, the universe is still expressing itself in your particular form, in its particular way, with all the particularity and uniqueness and unrepeatable specificity that you bring. And between here and there, between this moment of settling into sleep and that moment of waking in the morning, there is the deep, dark, perfectly restful country of sleep itself, where the ego sets down its project, where the story pauses, where the machinery of the ordinary mind slows and stills, and the deeper intelligence, the intelligence of the body, the intelligence of the dreaming mind, the intelligence that keeps your heart beating and your cells renewing and your nervous system maintaining its extraordinary complexity. That deeper intelligence takes over, does its work without your supervision, repairs and consolidates and integrates and prepares, so that when morning comes and the story resumes, it resumes a little fresher, a little more resourced, a little more able to meet what the day brings with some measure of openness and equanimity. Sleep is not the absence of awareness. Sleep is awareness in a different mode, a quieter mode, a less effortful mode, a mode in which the awareness is still present. You know this because you can be woken from any stage of sleep, because you are always capable of registering a sufficiently strong signal from the environment, because the sense of self does not completely disappear in sleep, but merely becomes less active, less insistent, less foreground. In sleep, the awareness that is always present simply rests in itself, without the usual content, without the usual story, without the usual effort of maintaining the performance of being a particular person in a particular world with particular things to do. In sleep, you are just awareness, resting in itself. And that is, actually, one of the best descriptions of what the great contemplative traditions have always been pointing at. Not awareness with a special object, not awareness achieving a special state, just awareness, resting in itself, at peace, present, complete, needing nothing added, nothing improved, nothing explained. You will be there soon. The sleep that is coming for you is not an unconsciousness. It is a homecoming. The ego, which has been working so hard all day, is about to set down its luggage and rest. And the awareness that has been carrying the ego, the deep, spacious, perfectly still awareness that has been here throughout, that awareness will continue, undisturbed, uninterrupted, as it always is, as it always has been, as it will be when you wake, and as it was before you were born, and as it will be in whatever forms come after. The universe is not worried about you tonight. This is not because the universe is indifferent. It is because you are the universe, and the universe knows, in whatever deep, non-cognitive, structural way that the universe can know things, that everything is proceeding exactly as it needs to proceed, that the night is doing what nights do, that the stars are doing what stars do, that you are doing what you need to do, which is rest, which is the most important thing you can do right now, and also the easiest, the simplest, the thing that requires nothing from you except your permission. So give it. One more time. Give yourself permission to rest. Not because you have earned it, not because you deserve it in any particular way that needs to be proven, but simply because it is night and it is time, and rest is what is called for, and you are here, and all the conditions are met. Let the last thoughts drift past, like the last clouds of an evening sky, moving slowly toward the horizon, each one a little less vivid than the last, a little less dense, a little more transparent against the darkening blue. Let them go where clouds go. Let them dissolve into the general darkness of the night sky, which holds them and releases them equally, which is neither helped nor harmed by their presence or their passing. You are the sky, not the clouds, the sky. The thoughts arise in you. They do not change you. They are not you. They pass through you and dissolve back into you, and the you that remains when they are gone is the same you that was there before they arose. Clear, open, spacious, perfectly still, completely alive, completely here. The ocean is breathing outside somewhere in the world, even if you cannot hear it from where you are lying. It has been breathing since before there was anyone to hear it, and it will breathe long after all of this is different. And right now, it is breathing in its slow, rhythmic, ancient way, completely at ease, completely itself, doing what it does without effort or concern. You can breathe like that. You can be like that. Not by trying to be the ocean. You are not the ocean. You are you, your particular and unrepeatable configuration of whatever the universe has made you from. But by allowing the same ease that the ocean has, the same effortlessness, the same complete alignment with your own nature rather than with what you think you ought to be. And now the words are growing quieter, not because there is less to say. There is always more to say. There are always more angles from which to approach this infinite subject, always more metaphors, always more ways of pointing at the moon that is always already there in the sky. But because sleep is more important right now than more words, because the rest you need is not a rest of the mind filling itself with more ideas, however beautiful and gentle those ideas might be. The rest you need is a rest in silence, in the silence that has been here all along, underneath the words, around the words, the ground from which the words arise and to which they return. So I will let the words thin out now, slowly, like the light after sunset, gradually less vivid, gradually more gentle, gradually giving way to the night. You are warm. You are safe. You are held by this moment, by this darkness, by the completely trustworthy fact of your own existence, which requires nothing from you tonight, except that you allow it to continue in its own way, at its own pace, doing what it does. The breath comes in and goes out, comes in and goes out. Each breath is the universe breathing through you. Each breath is the tide, advancing and retreating. Each breath is the proof that you are here, that the life in you continues, that the extraordinary, improbable fact of your existence is still the case right now, in this moment, as it has been for all the moments of your life, and as it will continue to be through all the moments of your sleep. Rest now. Let everything go quiet. Let the body be completely heavy and completely comfortable. Let the mind be like still water, reflecting everything, disturbed by nothing, completely clear, completely at peace. The night is full and dark and immense and completely safe. The stars are in their places. The universe is doing what it does. And you, which is to say the universe in your particular form, are doing what you do, which is rest, which is sleep, which is the body and the mind and the awareness settling into the natural rhythm of the night, carried forward by forces much older and much wiser than anything the ego has ever managed. Alan Watts once said that the whole world is myself doing, and knowing that, I can swim with the current instead of against it. Tonight you are doing that. You are swimming with the current of night, of rest, of the body's ancient need for sleep, of the mind's longing to set down its burdens for a while. You are moving with all of that rather than against it, and it is carrying you, gently and certainly, to the place you are going, which is nowhere other than here, which is sleep, which is the temporary homecoming that happens every night when the ordinary self sets down its work. Let it go now. Let the last bit of effort go. Let the last small tension release. Let the eyes relax behind the closed lids, the jaw unclench, the hands unfold. Let the belly be soft. Let the chest be open. Let the breath move in and out without any guidance from you, without any management or adjustment,
just as it always moves, just as it has always moved through every night of your life, trustworthy and automatic and completely sufficient. Let sleep come. It is already coming. It has been coming since you lay down. It comes more quickly when you stop trying to make it come, when you stop measuring how close it is and whether you are falling asleep the right way at the right speed.
Let it come in its own way, at its own pace, the way morning comes. You do not watch the horizon waiting for the sun. You simply sleep, and when you wake, the sun is already there. The morning has already happened. The night has done its work. The night is doing its work right now. And beneath everything, beneath the thoughts that are growing more distant and less coherent, beneath the sensations that are growing fainter and more background, beneath the sound of my voice, which is growing softer and more gentle with each sentence, softening into the general quiet of the night, beneath all of it, completely unchanged and completely present, is the awareness that has always been here, witnessing effortlessly, present completely, at peace, not because everything is exactly as it wishes, but because peace is what this awareness fundamentally is, before anything is wished for, before any comparison is made, before any story is told. You are that awareness. You are that peace. You are not trying to achieve it. You are it, resting in itself, breathing in the dark, allowing the night to pass, allowing the sleep to come, allowing the morning that will follow to be whatever it will be. The universe is breathing. The ocean is breathing. The stars are burning slowly and completely, giving their light to the dark. The earth is turning slowly and steadily, carrying all of us around to the day that waits on the other side of this night. And you are breathing, slowly, deeply, completely at rest. Everything is in its right place. Everything is proceeding as it needs to proceed. You are here. You are well. You are held. And now, sleep. The thoughts are quiet now. They have slowed to almost nothing, drifting past like the last few leaves in a late autumn wind, sparse and light and barely noticed. The body is warm and heavy and completely at rest. The awareness is here, always will be here, but not doing anything in particular, not attending to anything specific, simply present in the way that space is present, in the way that silence is present, in the way that the night itself is present, completely, without effort, without beginning or end, without needing anything from you or giving you anything to do. This is the threshold. Here, on this threshold between waking and sleeping, between the day that was and the night that is, between the story and the silence, here is where everything simplifies. Here is where the questions stop needing answers. Here is where the searching stops, not because it has found what it was looking for, but because in the stillness of this threshold, it becomes clear that the searching was always happening inside the very thing it was searching for, that the awareness seeking peace was always already the peace,
that the self-seeking connection was always already the connection, that the mind looking for the ground of being was always already standing on the ground. Let the last waking thought be this, or something like this, or nothing at all, just the feeling of it, just the quality of it. Everything is all right. Not everything is perfect. Not everything is as you would choose it. Not everything is resolved. Not everything is understood. But at the level that matters most, at the level of simply being here, simply being aware, simply being alive in this moment, everything is all right. The universe is doing what it does. You are doing what you do. The night is doing what it does. And in this simple, unambiguous, completely present, completely real moment, there is peace. Deep, genuine, not purchased and not earned, and not required to be maintained peace. The peace of simply being what you are. Sleep now. Let the day go. Let the story rest. Let the awareness settle into itself like water settling into its level, completely naturally, completely effortlessly, finding its own most peaceful configuration without any help from you. The stars are above you. The ocean is somewhere in the world, breathing. The night is full of the quiet that nights have been full of since the first night that was dark enough to be a night on this planet. And you are here, completely at rest, completely home. Good night. The universe is watching over you in the way that the universe watches over everything, which is to say, not from outside, not from a distance, not as a separate observer watching a separate watched, but from inside, as you, as the awareness that is you and has always been you and will always be you in one form or another, the way the ocean is always the ocean, even as it is always new water, always new waves, always something that has not been exactly this way before and will never be exactly this way again. You are a wave, a beautiful, specific, unrepeatable wave, and the ocean is breathing you in. Good night. Sleep well. The secret is safe. It has always been safe. It is you. It is this. It is now. And now is enough. More than enough. The whole thing. Sleep.